Hi, I'm Tyson with Adventure Rig, and Callie and I are currently down here in Baja, Mexico. We recently returned from a loop around Central America, and the communications that we took with us for this trip are made by Sena, and these are the 50R units. We each have one on our Climb Cryos helmets, and this was a big step up from our older Sena, mainly because of the Mesh 2.0 communications that they're using in these 50R units. Now, our old comms were basically just Bluetooth, so we could connect to each other's helmets via Bluetooth, and it worked okay. It kind of seemed like a lot of voodoo magic. Some mornings it would want to connect, other mornings it would take 5 minutes to connect, and other times it would just randomly connect and disconnect. With the Mesh 2.0, this is leaps and bounds better than the Bluetooth technology that we had been using. So with the simple push of a button on the back side of the unit, you can enter into what they call Open Mesh Intercom. So if Callie hits that button on hers, she's now in Open Mesh. If I hit it on mine, I'm also in Open Mesh. And at that point, both of these automatically connect together, and Callie and I instantly have communications with each other. Probably the part that I like about it the most is really how easy it is to connect with just that button. With the Open Mesh, if you have, say, 1,000 riders, the idea behind this is there's an infinite amount of people that could literally connect to this Open Mesh network. Now, if you don't have 1,000 friends and maybe you just have 3 or 4 like Cal and I have, then you can go into what they call a group mesh intercom. Unlike the open mesh that's basically infinite, with the group mesh you can support up to 24 riders. And there are 9 different channels for this. So if you wanted to go to, say, channel 3 on these headsets and then everyone goes to channel 3, it'll support up to 24 riders on these headsets. So everyone would have group communication between all of the headsets. Now, one thing that we did with these is we connected them to our Garmin Zumo GPSs, and we were listening to music through the GPS into the headsets, and then also spoken directions through the GPS into the headsets. And it works very well. It will dim the music into the background of the earpieces if, say, Callie starts talking or I start talking or the GPS starts talking. Now, another great thing about the 50R is that a ton of things work on it with just voice commands. So I have an Apple phone. If you just wanted to say, "Hey Siri," you can pull that up through the Sena and start talking to your phone. So if you're on your BMW and you want to find the closest Starbucks, you easily can do that hands-free. Now, I'm taking a jab, obviously, at BMW riders, but I have a little secret. I like Starbucks as well. Pumpkin spice lattes, that's my jam. Also, if you have a phone call coming in, you can easily answer that phone call, again, hands-free, and start talking. Now, Callie and I don't really talk on the phone when we're riding. That's not a big feature that we use. Really, for us, it's going to be communication between each other, as well as having the GPS talk to us, and then the biggest thing is probably the music. However, if you are using your phone, it's definitely possible, and it works very well with all of the hands-free that they have integrated into it. All of this is great, but how well does it actually work? Sena says that you can go up to 5 miles with this technology. I don't know how they're getting 5 miles out of it. It definitely works better than Bluetooth. There's no question about it. With Bluetooth, you can go into Bluetooth on these and you can see for yourself, but with Bluetooth, you could be a half mile back and it starts breaking in and out. The other thing that we hate about the Bluetooth is you start getting these voice prompts saying that it's been lost. You start getting beeps, and it is the most annoying thing that I can think of. With the mesh, if you happen to lose another rider, it doesn't start beeping at you. It doesn't give you any voice prompts. The rider will cut out. They may not be there, but then they seamlessly just transition back in, and all of a sudden they're there. Now, after riding these for like 500 miles, we kind of had an idea of the range that we were getting on them, and I would maybe be a half mile or 3/4 mile in front of Callie and go around a sharp bend where there's rocks, and I would lose her. And I knew that that was going to happen. So again, their 5 miles is probably in absolutely perfect conditions where the sun is aligned with the moon and there's one cloud over here and 0 wind. I don't know. We honestly were getting mile and a half of actual sight distance between the two of us so we could still see each other, and they were still working. But kind of beyond that, they would start to drop in and out, or they would start to crackle. Another thing that has happened a handful of times is Callie and I can be off of our motorcycles and just standing next to each other, talking to each other through the helmets. And they will start to kind of crackle a little bit with some interference back and forth, and then all of a sudden it'll start working fine again. I don't know what the interference is, where it's happened, because sometimes, and most of the time, it never happens, but it has happened on a handful of occasions. I haven't figured out what that is, but maybe it just needs an update. The nice thing with these is that it comes with a Wi-Fi adapter, and when you plug it in, they automatically update. So that's gonna be the next thing that we do, is make sure that there are not any outstanding updates that need to occur, because maybe it's just something as simple as that. However, all of this technology, again, it's kind of voodoo magic. I don't understand how it all works, so the fact that it actually works is beyond me, and I love it. On the side of the unit, you do have 3 main buttons that are glove friendly, so you can feel these with your gloves on. The center button is raised compared to the front button and the back button. Now, using a combination of the middle and front button is how you turn the unit on and off. And then the front button is a volume button, the back one is volume down, front is volume up. We honestly don't use the buttons very much, other than turning the units on or off, or turning the sound up or down. But we wear earplugs when we ride and turn the volume to 100%, and at that level we don't ever touch it. We can hear each other just fine, no matter how windy it is, how fast we're going. We can also hear our music just fine. This is another big upgrade, I feel like, compared to their older units. If we were not wearing earplugs, we could hear great, there were not any issues. But once we put earplugs in, I didn't feel like I could hear Callie as well as I wanted to, and I couldn't get any more volume out of the units. With these ones, I think they've upgraded that a little bit, because I can definitely hear Callie no problem now, and that I love. Again, on the back you have that Mesh Intercom button, so those are really the only ones that you use, but with all the hands-free, like I said, we don't really find ourselves using buttons all that much. On the back of the unit, this is where you can plug in to charge the unit or the Wi-Fi adapter. The one downside for Callie and I, and it probably is not going to be everyone, but they have made this nice and tight. It sits really flat up against the helmet, and it's sleek. But because of that, they've done away with how our older unit attached to the helmet was with a clamp that actually attached to the helmet, then this clipped into that clamp. This now attaches directly to the helmet. So if we're on a long trip and we need to charge these, we have to take the entire helmet with us. Our old ones, we could literally disconnect just this unit from the side of the helmet and say put it in the tent or take it into the hotel room to charge it. With this though, the downside to us is in a tent, we now have to take both helmets and put them in the tent with a battery to charge these back up. It ended up actually not being the end of the world, just took a little bit of getting used to in Central America. While we're on the battery, another thing to mention is battery life. Out of the Mesh, you're going to receive about 8 hours, and that's what their literature says, and we found that to be almost spot on. At about 8 hours, or just after 8 hours, we would start getting the prompt that the battery level was low, and that lasted for maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and then the unit would shut down. One thing with these that kind of blew my mind is that after plugging it in for only 20 minutes, you can get another 3.5 hours of runtime out of the Mesh system. If you plug it in for an hour, you're gonna get a full charge. So that kind of makes up for the 8 hours of battery life. If we were starting at 7 a.m., it usually was around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon that these would die on us, and we still had another few hours of riding left. But we can connect them right into our rally towers and start charging them without having to get off the bike and set them down. We can just run a cord right to them, and again, after 20 minutes, we're set for the rest of the day. So you could even do that at a lunch stop, charge it for another 20 minutes, and you're not gonna have these die on you. If you're in the Bluetooth setting, you're gonna get about 13.5 hours of runtime out of them. So at that point, you're gonna get a lot more, but Callie and I don't like the Bluetooth. Doesn't sound as good and definitely doesn't work as good. Another feature that I like about this, you can see the antenna is hinged at the front of the unit. So if we're in the woods and you hit a branch going by you, it naturally pushes this antenna down. If it was hinged at the back and it was stuck up in, say, this direction and you were moving this way, if you hit a branch, it's going to break the antenna off. So I definitely like that design feature because I've broken an antenna off of another manufacturer's unit because their antenna goes the opposite direction. If you're someone that likes to wear earbuds instead of having the speakers mounted inside of the helmet, you can still do that with this unit. However, it doesn't have a 3.5mm jack on it. What you can do though is get an adapter kit, and at that point you can still run your earbuds with this. It's a super easy install in the helmet. They have both a boom mic as well as what we use on ours, which is just going to be a wired mic, and then the microphone is right here in front of our mouth. We can easily talk through that. We don't have to yell or anything, and it picks it right up, no problem. Again, these are the Sena 50Rs that we have mounted in our helmets with the Mesh 2.0. Again, that Mesh 2.0, there are a couple little issues that we've experienced with it. However, the pros far outweigh any of the cons that we found with it, just because it is so easy to use and everything kind of happens seamlessly, which we love. Because I hate dinkering around with things, trying to get on the road first thing in the morning. With this, all we have to do is turn it on, go into open mesh, and we're good to go for the rest of the day. If you guys have any questions about the Sena, feel free to leave them in the comments section below and we'll get back to you. Also, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you're wondering where we are or what we're up to, maybe you want to know about Central America or look at some photos from the trip, you should be following us on Facebook and Instagram at Adventure Rig. Thanks again for watching. I'm Tyson with Adventure Rig. I would go as far to say that Sena has possibly saved our life once. We were in the Durango region of Mexico, which, come to find out, is pretty big with the cartel. We were on a far out remote road, and we were sitting on the side of it because we were going to take a photo of the most picturesque scenery that we had ever seen. We pulled over on the side of the road, and as we pulled over, a car or a truck pulled up behind us, and I was sitting on my bike in front of Callie, and I was looking in my mirror, and she was looking in her mirror. She's talking to me. I can clearly hear her, and she says, "Do I need to be worried about this truck that's behind us?" I'm like, "No, I don't think so. They're just going to take a beautiful photo like we want to." Well, then 4 guys with automatic assault rifles hop out of that pickup, and Callie's like, "Oh my God, they have guns!" And I'm like, "Yeah, they do! We gotta go!" And we rode for about 25 miles as fast as we possibly could and never looked back. So I'm glad that we were talking to each other so that either I didn't leave Callie or she didn't leave me because we couldn't hear each other. Thanks, Sena, for saving our life.